Welcome to Mr. Ford's Easel. Don't be surprised at what I'm drawing here. Believe it or not, I'm drawing a cartoon face. That's right, a drawing such as this, which of course is obviously not portrait quality, but it qualifies as a cartoon. For example, there are comic strips which feature more or less realistic looking people like this fellow right here. Somewhere I read that they are often called soap opera strips, where you have folks that are really cartoon drawings, well, like this fella, and here's his friend. This is also a cartoon, and you might, I doubt it, but you might see someone like her in a serious type strip. A little more about the strips in case you keep up with these. The type comic strips I'm referring to here have a continued narrative from one day to the next. You know, that's the reason I guess they call them, some people call them soap opera strips. And incidentally, it's not just the faces that are more realistic than the kind of faces I usually draw, but background such as furniture or scenic images, automobiles, they look a lot more like what you would see in real life. Now, what I'm leading up to is, well, let me give you another couple of examples. These people are middle-aged or less. Let's have a couple of people here who are somewhat older in the senior citizens division of society, I guess you'd say. Here's an older gentleman here, and I think I'm making him not Methuselah level, but anyway, he looks like he's up in years. And over here is a lady who is maybe about that same age. She looks a little bit like Mary Worth, who was one of the serious comic strips characters. Now, let me say again that all these drawings are cartoons. Now, let's change the subject a little bit. As you know, I like to draw characters with a good bit more exaggeration than you see in any of these. So if I'm going to draw, somebody asks me to draw a cartoon of just a regular guy about middle age, I'm more likely to draw it fast and put a big nose. You remember, exaggeration is sort of at the heart of cartoon character creation and everything else about cartoons, really. The exaggerated nose and maybe a thin, unnaturally thin neck, and maybe he might have a friend, a female friend who has exaggerated features, and maybe more or less unruly hair and so on. And when it comes to the older folks, well, I won't have space here to draw both of them, but if I were to draw an old fella for a cartoon strip that I was trying to get going, I would probably make him something like this. I would give him kind of a happy expression, and then I might put a kind of an old geezer hat on top of his head, you see. Now, let's color these up a little bit just to pretend that these are characters in the Sunday strip, which is in color in most newspapers. Incidentally, I learned somewhere that this comic strips the coloring part is not done by the artist himself or herself. At least that's generally true. He or she, the artist, does the lines and most everything else, I suppose, but someone else does the coloring. Well, let's take a short break. I won't get to color all the rest of them, or maybe I will, but we'll come back in a little bit and we'll start looking at cartoon animals and realistic animals. Well, as I said, cartoons may include realistic-looking creatures. For example, I'm just going to draw part of this. A rat looks something like this, kind of a grayish rat with a long nose and whiskers. That's not very funny. And so I want to show you right next to him what I might do with a rat if I were going to do a cartoon. I would give him bigger eyes. Notice the rat's eyes in this picture, real small. Well, I would have a longer, funnier nose with the big eyes, and of course, likely as not, I'd put clothes on this wretched creature. And, like Walt Disney did with his mouse, Mickey, I might put shoes on him and a long tail, of course. The long tail is about the only similarity between my rat and this rat to the left there. Going on with other animals, if you visit a farm or in some other way encounter a goose, it might look something like this. Mind you now, I'm talking about the more or less realistic version. Might have a small eye, kind of like the rat over here. And then here I come along with my cartoon goose character. I'd have the long neck, all right, but I'd put an expression on its face and maybe, as I've been known to do, a cap on his head. Quite a difference. What you have to do, and of course, is to retain some similarity. The long neck, and if I got down to the feet, they would look a lot like the feet on the realistic goose. Horses, they're handsome animals, at least in real life and in some still cartoon drawings. This is more or less a realistic horse with the graceful neck and the mane. Might have some markings on him, and I could put a bridle on him, but I won't bother with that. Now compare this Mr. Horse with the one I'm about to do. Okay, got ears all right, and a mane, but the rest of him, well, what do you think? Quite a difference, right? Especially when I have him with his hands in his pocket. By the way, cartoonists vary as to how they do the feet on a cartoon horse. Sometimes they'll put human shoes instead of horseshoes. That makes it somehow a little bit funnier than just to put a regular horse's hoof. So that's what I do. I put some rather large sneakers. You can't really imagine a real horse fitting his hoof into something like that. So there we have a contrast. Again, realistic cartoon horse and my horse. Well, even Mickey Mouse has a tail, so I guess a horse ought to have a tail, even in the funny cartoons. Well, Mr. Pig, if you go to the fair, you might see a prize hog that looks something like this. Brought in from a hog farm nearby, perhaps. And then, well, I have two possibilities for the cartoon version here. I'll do mine, the kind that I've drawn on this program before. A cute pig, you know, kind of like one of the Three Little Pigs, perhaps. Again, notice the big eyes. That's one of the main differences between real-looking animals and the kind I draw most of the time. And then, of course, you can have a real mean pig like this one right here. Let's see if you recognize this one. Well, it's not just any pig. This is a razorback hog, right? A couple more. Well, I think our time is about up. Let me put a little red on that razorback hogs. Otherwise, you wouldn't recognize it as being a razorback. Don't have time to color the rest of them, but a razorback is not a razorback unless he's pretty red and perhaps has a big A on his side. Well, that about does it for Mr. Foy's Easel. I trust that if I give you a quiz on different types of comic strip characters, animals and all, you'll be able to pass it with flying colors. Remember, you can contact Mr. Foy's Easel at conwaycorp.com.
Home security is now available through Conway Corp. It's an advanced solution backed by people you know and trust. Customize your system with motion detectors, sensors, light controls, and more, all managed from your wireless touchscreen or mobile phone. It's an easy way to protect the things that matter and the ones who matter most. It's safety for you, powered by Conway Corp.